Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today on our topic of nailing your midterm or short-term rental. We're going to be talking about a lot of different topics from investing, design, operations to hospitality, marketing, design, to even how do you set up your operations. You're here because you've met us and you're exploring what it may look like to work with us or to have a sustainable midterm or short-term rental business. And we're so excited that you're here and taking your first step in journeying with us.
Yeah. And what we're offering here in this next hour to 2 hours is quite robust. So it could be that this is your first time getting into midterm or short-term rentals. You could be a first-time investor. You could have also been doing this for years already. You could be building out your portfolio and you're looking for a new approach or just a different perspective. And it's always just really good to keep those fresh perspectives coming. And so we wanted to offer something that was really robust and detailed, and not just like a quick intro, to this. There's a lot of that information that's out there. But because it is so detailed, we're going to be jumping around a little bit throughout our journey here. We'll introduce ourselves, of course, but just keep in mind this is a three-part session, parts 1, 2, and 3 that break down everything from the investment phase to your design phase and to your operations. Also, keep in mind that all of these parts build upon each other and come full circle. So it's never just that, you can talk about investing without talking about your design. You cannot talk about your design without talking about your operations. They're so interconnected. And so that's why we wanted to offer all of this in one fell swoop, because we can't have one without the other. So buckle up and get excited. We hope and we believe that no matter where you are in your hosting journey, whether it's a midterm or a short-term rental, whether you've done this before or you're seasoned and you're looking for a new approach or new team members, there will be something here for you. So let's get into it, right?
Can't wait. Thanks for joining us.
Okay.
And Jeff
All
walked
righty.
the door to the side, but I it was barely noticeable.
Oh,
No
that's
one will
okay.
notice. No one will notice. It was very minimal. So you nailed that. You nailed it.
Okay.
So my name is Betsy Ma. I am a midterm and short-term rental investor. We started off on this journey. Don, if you want to advance the slide, we started off on this journey a few years ago with our two kids in tow. They're now 4 and 6. They're adventurous boys. They are constantly looking for their next thing to skin up their knees. We love family travel, exploration, and any excuse for ice cream. So we started in 2021 during the pandemic. We bought our short-term rental in Joshua Tree. And then in 2022, a house hack in Whittier that we have as a midterm rental. We're here in Southern California. So for those that don't know where Whittier is, so we're obsessed with guest experience, operational systems. That's really is my passion. Really helping create a sustainable business model for hosts. And I through that, helping others, started to co-host as well, midterm and short-term rentals in Southern California, out of state, across the US, and I am a real estate agent as well. So getting to help people through that whole journey from acquisition into having it be an ongoing sustainable investment is my passion. I started my co-hosting business and consulting business, Venturescape Homes, because I really love to connect with others, serve others, and help empower them towards generational wealth. So we have a variety of services, as mentioned below, from consulting to automation and full service launch and support for those that want to self-manage. And I want to reach out and introduce my co-host for this session, Dawn Asher.
Yeah.
Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm Dawn Asher. I am the founder and creative director of the Olive Jar. I'm married with two girls. We are campers, we're glampers. We love the beach. We'll go the distance, just for even a couple hours at the beach. Um, I love Mondays. In my spare time, I take tap lessons. And my background is in experiential marketing, commercial production design. That's where I really started with my interior styling work. But as well as event design and hospitality work is where I really got into more experiential design, and really my dug my feet into the hospitality industry. And by blood, I'm an Italian foodie, so every day is filled with what am I eating next. So um, I love my job as the owner and creative director of the Olive Jar. As I said, we are a creative concierge service. We specialize in design, hospitality, and marketing for short-term hosts, short-term rental hosts, and now midterm rental hosts as well. We are really about reinventing your rentals into these five-star getaways that foster a sense of belonging. And it's all about, for us, really elevating those everyday travel experiences into one's getaways that will reconnect. And we create those spaces of belonging by designing spaces and guest experiences where travelers can really feel like they're meant to be there. And this space was designed just for them, where they can feel like their host knew everything, that just what they wanted and just what they would need. And so that's a little bit about the Olive Jar. And been working with Betsy since the launch of the Olive Jar, actually. In working with her to design her first property, but also we've worked together now on many different properties that she's done to launch it with with the operational side, and I've come in to support with design and hospitality and marketing. So that's a little bit about me, and we're just excited to offer this session to get to know us a little bit more and more about really our philosophy and our approach to what it would mean to design and to create and to launch and to sustain and build a successful midterm and midterm or short-term rental. So thanks, Betsy, for starting this.
Our part one, our first sort of prong of this three-part stool is investing. We're dealing with acquisitions, deal analysis, and lending. For those of you that maybe don't own a property yet, we want to kind of dive into all those parts of how do you get started. So, Dawn, if you could. So you might say, like, you might be thinking, like, where do I even get started? How do I choose my strategy? So if you don't own your primary residence, of course, we want to push you to consider buying your primary first. If you're willing and you feel like maybe, like, I want to buy my primary, but it's not comfortable buying and just having it be a place that you can solely foot the mortgage yourself, I want to invite you to get creative and perhaps a little uncomfortable, so that you can stop the cash bleed of renting. Could you rent, buy a property as your primary and rent by the room? Could you look for a property that has a master, maybe a bedroom with a private entry, maybe an in-suite bathroom? And could you have that as a short-term or mid-term rental? Could you buy as a primary a duplex or a property that has an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU, or a casita, a separate unit that you could also rent out? And could you also consider your willingness to commute to live in a more affordable area? Your first home is never your dream home. What could you do to just get in and let that property sit for a few years to build up equity so that you can go and later purchase another property as your primary dream home? So I want to encourage you to work with an agent who's well skilled and utilizes this strategy even on their own home ownership journey, and can also be a resource for you as you start your home ownership journey. So those are for those individuals that don't own their primary residence. Now, if you do own your primary residence, we want to invite you. So, Dawn, if you could advance the slide. If you do own your primary residence, are you maximizing the income potential of your primary? Are you renting out unused space? Could you add an ADU? Maybe you could live in the ADU and midterm or short-term rental the main house. Now, there are some considerations with ADUs. Are there comparable properties in your area? The resale value? That's something you're going to want to reach out to a realtor to really help you understand even before you start the ADU build process. What your long-term end goals are and what's specific to your neighborhood. If you do own your primary residence, it might be a great opportunity to take the next step in building your portfolio and consider buying an investment home. So there's lots of different options. Next slide. For buying an investment home, you could buy the investment home as a vacation home rental. You put 10% down. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but you can also, if you have maxed out your ability to have conventional loans, you can look into a different loan product like a DSCR loan. So just when you're kind of considering strategy selection, going back to our slides, this is a 569 square foot midterm rental, gorgeous, designed by Dawn. Look at the perspective and the angles in this photo. It's just so luscious. I love it. And I'm actually recording from our 300 square foot midterm rental house hack in Whittier. So this is where I'm recording from right now. I'm sitting at that desk there. This is a part of our home that we live in that is a completely separate unit attached to the house. It's actually the master suite. So just want to give you some visuals to kind of imagine what could be. We're not talking huge square footage even for some of these strategies. It can be literally be a nook within something you already own. So next slide. So you want to also, like, one of the things that, I work with frequently with investors or with people that reach out to me, like, I don't know what I should do next. Can you help me? Is, you really have to consider your risk tolerance and your ability to be active in that property. So if you're looking for less risk, I always say house hack, because worst case scenario, you just end up living in it. Or maybe you have a family member that comes and lives in it with you. If anything goes south, if regulations change, you can always pivot. If you need more space, you just get rid of the tenant. So less risk, and it's also less risky because the fact that you can get in with a loan product that is primary home buying loan product, which is much more affordable, interest rate and down payment wise. So less risk would be having a midterm rental, because those are the tried and true. That's a tried and true strategy. People have been midterm running for as long as you can imagine. Basically, it's a furnished long-term rental. That's what it is. A furnished long-term rental. You're renting it for over 30 days. So by the eyes of the state, it is a long-term rental. It just is furnished. And you can make more money off of that as well. A less risk, but more active strategy would have it be a short-term rental. In most jurisdictions nationwide, if you are living in it as your primary residence, meaning you're house hacking it, you can short-term rental with very little pushback. You may need to get permitted and submit some paperwork, but there really is not, you are physically at the property. There really is a lot of more wiggle room with that. But you just know that you're going to be more active than the midterm rental house hack, meaning you're going to have turnovers every, couple of days. You're going to be needing to respond to Airbnb verbal messaging. So it is, there is a sort of level of like hospitality expectation that you wouldn't normally get with a midterm rental. Midterm rental, they move in, got keys, got settled, everything's golden. Short-term rental, you're gonna be on call. Hey, where do you think we should? Well, where's a good place to celebrate an anniversary? Or do you know a good sushi place? Or my car broke down. Do you have a good, referral? So that's the sort of level of expectation with a short-term rental that you don't find with a midterm rental, which is why I say it's more active. You are their concierge.
Mm.
So on the more risk side, we have a midterm rental investment. You're buying that property outright to midterm rent it. Or you are buying a short-term rental investment. So less active would be the midterm rental, more active would be the short-term rental. And I say more risk because you don't have sort of like the level of contingency plan. You're not living there. Well, ways that you can lessen risk would be have multiple exit strategies, and we'll get into that. Probably if you want to know about that, you need to reach out to me. So you really need to consider like what are your local regulations in regards to short-term and midterm rentals. Usually midterm rentals can be lumped in with long-term rentals. 30 plus by the eyes of the state is usually a long-term rental. We say midterm rentals because they're usually furnished. How active do you want to be day to day? Do you have a job that literally you can't look at your phone for 30, 45, an hour plus? Are you a surgeon that's in a surgery for 4 hours straight? That's going to be a problem if you're a short-term rental host, if you don't have someone else that can back you up. But if the benefit of that usually is if you are unable to be by your phone, you usually have some extra capital for setups, for buying properties, for setting them up, for the reserves. As many of my clients in the medical industry. But that being said, do you want to be glued to your phone as a short-term rental host? Or do you have the capacity to build a team? Is that something that you want? So just in considering even like capital. So we say benchmarks. These are not cookie cutter by any means, because it varies market to market, whether you're in a mountain area, in a very saturated short-term rental neighborhood, or if you are in a more remote area where there's not a lot of options. These really do fluctuate, but we want to say, we want to be forthcoming in saying that you need to have some capital built up to be able to do this successfully. We usually say 3 to 5K per bedroom to refresh furnished short-term rental. And that means just kind of it's already operating. We just need to add an additional layer or swap out for a better mattress, better bed frame, you name it. If you're going to outright furnish a new short-term rental, that means building out the amenities, building out the things that make people want to see it as a one-stop shop for their vacation, where they don't necessarily have to leave if they don't want to. You're looking at more to like 10 to 15K per bedroom. I know that may seem astronomical, but you're basically running a boutique hotel. It just has maybe 3 bedrooms, maybe 4 bedrooms. If you are looking to midterm rental only in these same markets, you can usually get away with having a budget that is 10 to 20% less, because they are there to live life on a day-to-day. They're not there for this, intense vacation experience. They are rooting there, and they are doing life in the community, usually working remotely. So there is less of the need to stand out. But of course, these are evolving numbers as even mid short-term rental, the industry evolves. So,
Let me chime in here too with
yeah.
this. Yeah, and I think that the reason why Betsy is being really clear to say we're looking at your market is we have to actually see what it would take to still compete. For example, as a midterm rental, a midterm rental in Palm Springs will require more of a high touch and higher profile design, and concept. Whereas in maybe a suburban neighborhood that's primary, mostly more residential, not as much of like a destination.
Yeah.
Um, you may not have to have something that's more concept driven and, with some bells and whistles. Also with these numbers too, the way that we kind of phrase it is that 10 to 15K per room budget, we're talking floor to ceiling. Whereas the refresh, Betsy spoke to a little bit, it could be you're just swapping out something, but a refresh can also mean adding in layers, and some of those layers, the way that the olive jar looks at that is the layers are what actually build more character to your space. So we've worked with clients where maybe they've done the bare minimum and there's a foundation there, but there's not much color. Maybe they really need an overhaul on like throw blankets and throw pillows, and to really add in that layer of comfort and touch, and like I said, character. And one thing that we've seen in differences between short-term rentals and midterm rentals is that with midterm rentals, you may not have all of those smaller details throughout the space because travelers are coming to fill the space themselves, right? So sometimes, it means pulling back a little bit with a midterm rental. So those are some of the differences we're talking about there. But overall, I think the important factor here is to know, especially as Betsy's talking about from the beginning here, knowing the regulations, knowing, what the lay of the land is, to actually operate as a short-term or midterm rental in that area. You need a team, and that also means you need an agent that knows this stuff. And a lot of agents that we've found and have heard from just simply don't have the full education, and maybe, unfortunately, guiding buyers down a rough path without really giving them as much information as they can. And maybe it's that, even if an agent doesn't have the full extent of education that's necessary, you need to be working with agents who will have those people in their back pocket to connect you with, to having those, conversations, to seeking out that education so that you're not going into this blindly. So I just
Yeah.
want to
Bring
point that out for sure.
yeah, and that they're bringing those relationships to the forefront even before getting an escrow on a property. And
Yeah.
that's where, I sort of am one where I pump the brakes a little bit, because ultimately, like, if you come back to me in 2 years and want to sell the property, it hurts my heart, to see, because I want to see my clients really be able to hold on to a property and build that generational wealth, to be able to have a thriving business, and not to feel like ever it was a quick sale, or it was something that they got into it and they didn't feel like they were fully educated on what they were getting into. So yeah, thanks for adding those few comments, Dawn.
Yeah.
Just real quick before we move on, you really want to make sure you're not over leveraging. If anyone is like, sort of, how do I know if I'm cutting it a little bit? I'm being a little bit too aggressive with what I want to get into. Really making sure you have a minimum of 3 months of reserves. So that's your principal, your interest, your taxes and insurance, because even the short-term rental permitting process can take up to 3 months.
Mhm.
So, really making sure you have some buffer in there so you're not feeling like you're over leveraging, or you're stressed out about finances. And, last but not least, there's shifting market conditions, shifting regulations. Make sure that you have a plan to pivot between, even, if you're going off as a short-term rental, like, could you pivot in midterm rental for a little bit? Um, Actually, all the properties that I co-host do pivot between midterm and short-term renting. So, working with someone that is familiar with how to navigate that is really helpful. Um, Next slide. So short-term rentals, you want to really consider the occupancy rate and the average daily rate for properties that you're interested in, or markets that you're interested in. I recommend you reach out to all of these, if you're interested in a property, if you're looking like you're going to place an offer, get into escrow, look on AirDNA, look at awning.com, look at rabu.com, price labs. You want to look at pre-pandemic data as well as current data. You want to make sure you are looking at similar properties, not just, like you want to look at not just like bedroom count, bathroom count, but you also, and, the style of the property, the architecture of the property, but you also want to look at amenities, the views, the finishes, any unique experiences. Do they have a sauna? Do they have a tennis court, a pickleball court? And then even like to dive a deeper level, do they have a heated pool? Do they have a not heated pool? Do they have an infinity pool? Do they have above ground pool? Do they have an in-ground pool? Like all those things really, really do play into looking at the income generation of a property. And
Mhm.
so, in sharing this with anyone that's interested in moving forward with working with us, it's Learn Like a CPA is Ryan Bate. He is an amazing, amazing tax preparer, as well as investor himself. He has a template called How to Prepare and Analyze a Pro Forma. Basically, that's how to analyze a property and its income potential. And it's really well detailed. So you won't have access through the Zoom recording to it, but we will make sure that we include that in supplemental resources. It's really intuitive and easy to plug in if you're looking at a property, what you could really estimate once you have done some of your initial investigation on all these websites mentioned above. Okay, just keep in mind that we'll move right along through some of this content. Direct bookings are not included in the ADR because those are not through a online travel agency like a Vrbo or an Airbnb. So those are not included. Cleaning fees are included in ADR. So basically they're taking those payout numbers from Airbnb, from Vrbo, and that they're seeing that all as revenue. You have to make sure that you are accounting for the cleaning fees and taking that out of the ADR when you're making your projection. So
That's Betsy, what's the ADR?
so
What's an ADR?
ADR is the average daily rate. So the average amount that that property is generating on a night, that's the ADR, the average daily rate. So let's just say you are making, let's say $500 a day. If you have as your ADR, if you have an average stay of like 2-3 days, okay, let's say that's $1,500. But your cleaning fee is $250. So you have to factor out that 250, so 1,500 minus 250, and then divide it by 3 to actually know your average ADR. So 1,250 divided by 3. So look at the ADR, calculate it out for a month. Usually most properties have between 7 and 9 turns a month if they have good occupancy. And then subtract that from the overall income. So then you kind of know, okay, basically after my cleaning fees, my take home, not including utilities, not including other maintenance, is this amount. And this is something that Learn Like a CPA has built into his pro forma. And then, look at other ways that you can keep your utility costs fixed and lean. Could you look into, especially in areas where, you're running your AC a lot? Is there a program that you can look into, like a lease solar program where you put no money down? That will keep your electricity bill lean so that more of that can be your take home. Talk to your CPA. You want to get the full tax benefits of owning a short-term rental. That's one of the beautiful things. If you have a W-2 income, you can still take advantage of the short-term rental loophole, which is you can accelerate the depreciation of your property and some of the initial investment that you put into it, and you can use that to offset your W-2 income. I think when we bought a $300,000 property 2 years ago, we had an offset of like around 45K, which was huge for us because it really helped us keep more of our W-2 income, utilize that depreciation. And then if we continue to invest as we plan to, we just will little by little have that depreciation from the rental properties to offset any other income that we bring in. If you are investing in a high appreciation rate market like a Austin, like a Southern California, like a Charleston, you really kind of take advantage of the appreciation and talk with your, the local team that you have about what you can build into your projections based on the appreciation rates in that area. Because that is another huge advantage of, like when you're doing your analysis, you don't always want to just do what you see with the property and the money in, money out. There's the tax benefits, there's the appreciation, all those sort of unseen forces that are also making it more lucrative to get into short-term and midterm rentals. So consider those as well.
Okay.
And so you can find comps for midterm rentals on Furnish Finder. You want to be a little bit conservative on the occupancy. You basically go to like their owner dashboard, if I'm not mistaken with the term. They have a whole owner section where you can see what the activity is on Furnish Finder and the interest in a market. You might want to be a little bit more conservative on the occupancy. Usually for a long-term rental, it's around 5% occupancy, 10%, depending on the area. You consider for your the occupancy rate. But maybe you want to consider like vacancy rate. Sorry, it's not occupancy, vacancy rate. Always off. So you might want to consider maybe like more like 20% on a midterm rental, just to be conservative. And you would basically take the monthly rent, and that would be your ADR. You want to account for, usually with midterm rentals, if they're furnished, if these are travel professionals, if they're not staying for more than 6 to 9 months, they're gonna, you're gonna want to account for all utilities, because switching utilities, for anything under a year is just not easy. You want to like just build it all in as a bundle, as well as starter supplies for consumables. Next slide. Thanks, Dawn. There's a lot of different loan products available, from vacation home loans to DSCR loans. The benefit of working with a loan broker versus like a lender themselves is they can shop products from across the US, and they can also help you in being mindful for strategizing for your long-term goals. So Dawn and I can connect you with our preferred loan brokers and people that we work with to help get them into their first or multiple properties.
Well, I think Betsy, you've started it off really in a robust and detailed way, because there are so many variables when considering this as an investment. We're going to get into a little bit about what it means to be a host as an investor. Where does that define your role? How does that define your role in the day-to-day business of this, whether it's a midterm or a short-term rental? As I mentioned, my background is in experiential marketing, which means that I worked with brands and organizations for 10, 15 years now, working to design really connective experiences that would really build and have built a very loyal following. So I've worked with brands and organizations, nonprofit, for profit, to design really, there goes my AirPod, one sec. To design experiences from events and hospitality, like I've mentioned, to film, commercial work, that would really engage their audience to really build an attachment to their brand, all through these storytelling driven experiences. And so that's where a lot of the olive jar expertise is coming from. It's actually understanding consumers, understanding people as they make buying decisions, as they purchase, what are they looking for? And so then when it comes to travel, it's not just the same, it's more, because travelers are looking for memories out of this, right? We just want to be really clear that, when you're making these decisions, you're not just thinking about a property, you are thinking about potentially life transforming experiences for travelers every day. And even if it is a midterm rental, they may not be looking for necessarily, a vacation memory, but any remote worker, anyone moving about, in different, locations, 1 month, 3 months at a time, it's still, and it still is a significant impact on their lives. And so every accommodation, whether it's short term or midterm, is going to have a lot of weight to it, and a lot of meaning in how they go about, and how these travelers go about making their decisions. So so that's why we want to be really clear about making those first steps in the investment. There are so many things to be thinking about, which is also why when you start to now think about the creative side of this business, the design, and the actual guest experience, we are using what Betsy has shared to build upon in making these next step decisions. This is a quote that I have lived by since the start of my career in this, by Seth Godin. True fans are hard to find and precious. Just a few can change everything. What they demand, though, is generosity and bravery. And so I start this section off, part 2 here, to say that when you are building this business, you are speaking to, and if you're smart about it, you are marketing in a niche. You're building your marketing strategy based on a niche audience. You only need a few. You only need a handful that are truly going to help propel your business, and a few that are really going to strongly connect to what you have to offer, which means that your decisions moving forward in your design can be more honed in. Your decisions, when you know who you are trying to reach, which is what we call the target traveler, your decisions are that much more streamlined, because you have a very direct line to the one type of traveler you're looking for. You're not trying to reach a mass audience. You could go that route, but it's not as effective, and you're going to end up using a ton more energy trying to reach thousands and thousands and thousands versus hundreds and hundreds, right? So I live by this quote. A little bit more about what we're designing at the Olive Jar is we just really do believe that generosity fosters a sense of belonging. At the Olive Jar, our goal is to reverse the trend of isolation that our global community is facing. We want to empower hosts to really elevate their guest experience using design, hospitality, and marketing as these mechanisms to promote deeper intimacy and greater intimacy and connection within all types of relationships. So our core values are around connection to self, connection to each other, the land, the landscape, and then local communities. And those are our core values. Now, what are you getting into? If you're investing in property as a short-term or mid-term owner, and you're saying, well, I just need to furnish it, set it and forget it, I'll be good from there. This is your time to reframe that thinking. This is more than a property investment. It is not a product. Okay. It is a business venture. You are selling an experience, which means that your buyer is constantly evolving. Travelers are constantly looking for new and fresh and what's next, and so we think about short-term rentals and even mid-term rentals as if you are running a boutique hotel. The travelers who are coming to your doors are looking for unique, one-of-a-kind experiences. Travelers, the mainstream of travelers do not travel like they used to. If you grew up with a family that did the same hotel or the same condo every summer on that beach, like my family did, that's just not the average traveling lifestyle anymore. Travelers are looking for something new even if they might go to the same location every summer for their family, their annual family vacation. Even if they're going to the same region, they're most likely not going back to the same place every time. So we begin with marketing. We do not begin with design. You first have to think about yourself in this role as an entrepreneur. Host is second. Marketing is the thing that most entrepreneurs fear the most. They leave for last and they treat like leftovers. It's kind of becomes an afterthought. Oh, I'll figure it out, right? I'll launch it and then I'll just figure it out and I'll figure out how to sell this thing after I've launched it. And, just as a forewarning, poor marketing is one of the main top reasons why businesses fail. So we are not going to suggest that you get into this business thinking design forward. We want you to be thinking about this business from a marketing standpoint. How are you going to market the experience that you want to sell? And further, at the Olive Jar, we are all about experiential marketing because we are not selling a product, we are selling an experience. So defined, experiential marketing, they are connective experiences that invite and engage your audience into co-creating the product or service that you offer. Experiential marketing actually builds a loyal following. And we'll get into the weeds a little bit more about what it actually means to make that audience a co-creator. Because there are ways that, a guest can just show up and just enjoy the space, and it could be memorable. But there are also ways for your guests to show up and truly engage with your story and your brand in a way that actually gives real sticking power. And you want the sticking power because you need their reviews, you need their organic buzz, and you need them sharing your property with other people ultimately. Because there are not, Airbnb is not going to do the marketing for you. You will be fighting the algorithm of Airbnb just like you're doing on social media every day. So you are going to be dependent on the word of mouth sharing of your guests in so many ways. So this is why we really stress it's experiential marketing that we need to embrace for building a successful STR or MTR. So, but from a very starting point, foundational place, we first talk about brand identity. So you want to be thinking about a distinct brand identity because it's a distinct brand identity is cohesively shown as a through line through your design, through your hospitality and amenities, through your public facing representation. And, viewers can pick up on that. If what they're looking at on the page has a discombobulated set of colors, different types of a mix and match of different aesthetics, then they're not really sure, what is this experience, right? But also, they're not going to necessarily feel drawn to your property because it feels so disoriented. Travelers, when anyone's viewing any brand, they're looking to connect to something, and it's just without a distinct identity, you can't really know if you can connect to it. You can't really feel a draw and feel a pull towards that brand. So the things that we do in brand identity and forming your brand identity is, first, we're identifying your target traveler. Is this families, but even more specifically, what age are those children, right? A family traveling with infants lives a very different lifestyle and is pursuing a very different travel experience than families with teenagers. Okay. So we're looking very specifically at who your target traveler is, who you are trying to reach. Who do you want to serve? And this is where the heart really comes into this too, is like, if you're going to get into this hosting business, you're going to have to care about that traveler. And so from a very human place, who is it that you care about serving in this industry? And who do you connect with the most? Because you're going to need that. Even if you have a management company running and a co-host running the operations of your business, you're still as the investor, as the owner, responsible for those travelers and responsible for, like I said, those memories that they're building. So we want to know first, who's your target traveler? Then once you know that, you can start to identify the type of traveler experience they are seeking. And so you may, in this process, even be identifying what types of brands and like lifestyle brands do these travelers seek out? What types of food are they looking for? What types of restaurants? What type of coffee do they drink, right? Are they Starbucks drinkers, or are they, craft coffee drinkers? Those are two very different kinds of travelers. So your experience that you're offering, just very to the point, if in your guidebook, you're offering coffee shops like Starbucks, Coffee Bean, these mainstream shops, versus your craftsman, your crafts coffee, places that are just the one of a kind. Though, you're going to be building a brand identity that is very different from each other. So coffee is a really great way to look at, what your traveler is attracted to. Then you're going to finally want to identify your brand filters, and we'll get to that in a moment here, a little bit more. But essentially, what does a brand identity do? Why do we have to create a brand identity? Because it actually reveals the story you're telling. It's like the story that's said, without words, right? And you will be using a lot of words in your listing, description and your social media and all of that. But even before that, if we're just talking visually, there are unspoken rules happening along the way there. There is a story you're telling, whether you're trying to or not. And so when we get into, once we start to figure out what your brand identity is going to be, that's when we can get into your actual brand visuals. You don't give travelers if you don't give travelers an experiential picture of your rental, your viewers will lack the visuals to imagine themselves in your rental. So this is why we will get to this too, but your photos, your still photos, and your videography are going to be so crucial to attracting your target traveler, especially if you're asking for that rental at a very specific and higher price point. You really have to be able to back that. So you want your traveler to be able to envision them in your space. So in our process, we're going to cast vision. There's going to be vision boards. There's going to be a lot of visuals. Think of a Pinterest board, right? That's the very first stage. But it's not just what's on the page. Visually, there is a narrative that's written on the page as well to describe that traveler and to even describe moments like they're arriving to your front door feeling XYZ, right? Or they're scrolling, the listing page looking for XYZ. If they're parents, they're exhausted before they've even booked, right? So what are you doing to ease them in their viewing experience even, right? when we get to actually designing your property and building out the materials, that's the installation. That's where we're actually styling. And then finally, the last part of the creative process is going to be around capturing those visuals, like I said, with the photography and videography. So here's an example of what we mean by brand filters. They are the words that will pare down and will filter, the visuals that you are choosing for your property. And so this is the olive jar, just letting you in. This is the olive jar brand filters. Our brand filters are warm, natural, intriguing, imaginative, playful, and restorative. So that means it's very much our posture in the way that we interact with people and interact with clients and travelers, but also visually, our aesthetic. If you get on our website, theolivejar.co, you'll feel these words throughout the pages that you're scrolling. So that's what we mean by brand filters. Here are a couple mood board examples of a couple of the properties. The Palm Springs property that Betsy was talking about in the beginning, that's called The Well at Palm Springs, and that's a midterm rental. Here was our initial mood board that we did, but this is a part of like a 6 or 7 page brand blueprint that we create for every client. The brand filters are clean, accommodating, harmonious, grounding, and motivating. And then the Stellar Inn is actually it's an old inn, like a motel, where the owners are flipping and building out, individual units that are being rented as short-term rentals. So their brand filters are cozy, connective, wonderful, elemental, and charming. And here is sort of like another version of our mood board where, we'd have this first page with visuals only. The second page is a repeat, but with, real descriptions to say, this is why we're selecting these images. This is what they mean. This is how they're going to connect to your brand. So then we're really getting into the creative development. We're getting into the design, and we say it's got to be inviting design. The most inviting design engages the senses, like a song that pulls on your heart. It has to really hit someone at the core, and so it taps into a target traveler's core needs. What are they truly seeking? Not just like, oh, I'm looking for a really relaxing time. Why are they looking for a relaxing stay, right? Maybe there's, a certain anxiety they're experiencing. Maybe, this traveler is a solopreneur, creative, working around the clock. They need inspiration, right? They need release. They're constantly looking for something to refill their bucket because they're going 24/7. As a creative, if you are one, you never stop working, right? So that's what we say when we're talking about core needs. And so we look at design from a 3-part framework. There are 3 pillars that we are considering throughout every design decision that we make. 1, cohesive aesthetics. So it's got to have the same mood and color palette, textures, all of those things have to be cohesive. You have to feel when you walk in, there is a singular identity here. Doesn't mean that you can't deviate from your color palette ever. You can't deviate from materials, but from your main, repeating materials, but you have to have that through line. And so we call that cohesive aesthetics. That's also based off your concept, and that comes from your branding blueprint that we're talking about. The concept is, that overall story and that overall experience that your traveler has been invited into. Like saying the concept is a retreat. The concept is and this isn't something you necessarily want to promote, but the concept is a party zone, right? So maybe it's a bachelorette pad is what we should say. That's a really great concept that's been that can be really successful for renters to create a space that's like great for like bachelorette parties. So that's what we mean when we say concept. And then practical functionality. That's where we're talking about, okay, space planning. We're talking about the types of furnishings and goods that your target traveler actually needs to function and live in the space. Are they looking for a chef's kitchen, right? Is your target traveler, a foodie, right? Do they enjoy cooking at home in the space, right? Or are they going to be out eating all the time, right? Are you in a busy city, right, where the real draw is the city life and the restaurants, so it just kind of depends how much, what it is that your target traveler is looking for, the type of experience they're looking for will then, determine how your home is stocked, basically. The other parts of practical functionality might have to do with lighting. It's a huge detail that is totally underlooked and overlooked and undervalued throughout the process. And so there are experts, that just work specifically in lighting because it's that crucial to changing the experience and changing so much about the room. So and then finally, the third part of our framework is memorable moments. And we'll get a little bit more about that in hospitality. But every room is going to have a focal point. Every room is going to have, and at least for the olive jar, something that really prompts connection and something that really draws your guest to really make a moment in that space. And so it can be as simple as, a wall that is really Instagrammable, right? At the olive jar, well, that's beautiful. And that'll be really great for shareability, for that buzzworthy moment. We go beyond that and we're talking about, okay, what's going to connect guests, right? Is this little corner nook with like a game station, a table that's set just for two people, which is actually, part of Betsy's first property. There's going to be an intimate moment there, a great chess game played in that corner. That could end up being a really memorable part of the trip. So we think about those details. Okay, so we talked a little bit about styling materials. I'll just review that again. We are talking around, $15K per room, floor to ceiling. Now, obviously, if you have smaller bedrooms, and a larger living room, some of that will balance out. Might be 20 grand for the living room, 10 grand for your bedroom. So, but that's essentially what we're thinking, what we're talking about when we say those numbers. 4 to 5K for that styling refresh, or what we call a styling finish. Midterm, we say, 40 to 50% less. It just, again, depends on what is the market demanding, what is the traveler demanding, what is, what are you competing with, essentially, to really determine for a midterm rental what's necessary design-wise. And then, we always come back to marketing. Like I said, everything we're doing is through the lens of marketing. So even after, thinking about your design concept, you still have to consider, is it marketable in this area? Is the target traveler you want actually going to come to this city for this experience? What are the chances that they are going to come here? And also, are there a million of what you're offering, right? Or are you offering something that's even more unique, but hits that same traveler, right? So there are a few things that you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at, you want to study the market successes. You want to analyze guest reviews. I mean, just scour guest reviews from other listings that you see in that area. See what they're pointing out, see the details that matter to them. And then you want to stay connected with other hosts and experts. This is why we say, you want to build a team. You may be a solopreneur, but even the smartest solopreneurs have people in their corner. They have other experts that they're leaning on, especially a creative team. no solopreneur, very few solopreneurs can do it all themselves, and you have too many hats to wear. So you're going to need to lean on the expertise of others along the process, along the way. So we also are very clear to say you do not want to cut corners. It's going to be easy to go for the low hanging fruit, but when it comes to design, especially, there's going to be a lot of wear and tear on certain items in your home. And so you are going to want to think about quality, with certain things, higher quality materials in certain areas of the home than others you can get away with. There is definitely going to be, a slice of your budget that is devoted just to, renewal and refreshing, over a set of seasons. So keep that in mind. So don't cut corners on your design. Ultimately, you want something that is long lasting and quality, because people will feel the cheap. They'll feel it in your listing, and they'll feel it when they're in the room. Same to that point, we attach this to what you're doing with your photography and videography. Already, there are viewer expectations. We are in an age where viewers are scrolling, and they're already looking for that quality photography, those quality images, because it feels more real to them, right? There's mood, with a quality image. And so we're already up against publications like Dwell and social media. People are already expecting that. So if you aren't there, you're already behind the ball. And it's going to be really hard to lift, your business back up after launching, especially with the algorithms of Airbnb and the way that your business launches really, really matters. Betsy, is it like the first 2 weeks of your launch on Airbnb, like you've got to have like bookings right away, or like you're already knocked down? What's that? Can you just share really quick what that
Yeah,
how the algorithm works with
like
that?
14 days. Yeah, well, your sort of your listing is boosted. And yeah, if it really sets your property, it's not like a do or die, but it really does help accelerate the momentum behind your property.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know you're talking
Yeah.
about visuals, but cutting corners too, if you don't do it up front, you're gonna pay for doing it again later,
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
that just be investing in washable materials like ruggables, or
Mm-hmm.
high quality sofa. Like, you're gonna end up replacing that stuff really quickly. So
Mm-hmm.
whether it's, investing in the visuals, invest in like those other things that, Dawn is recommending
Mm-hmm.
in the design phase, because ultimately she's looking at the longevity of that being able to be something that can be sustainable when you're having
Mm-hmm.
so much traffic in a property. But yeah,
Right.
2 weeks generally.
Awesome. So the other side of this is the owner's responsibility. The owner has a responsibility. You, as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as host, you have a responsibility to yourself to professionally capture your space out of respect for the investment that you have made. Right. So it's your business. You want to hold this business with as much care and intention and attention as you possibly can. And so you don't want to cut those corners with your with your photography and videography. You want to get professional work done. And it is work that you might have to do over time when you refresh, as you start to hone your traveler and learn more about your traveler, and you add in, more updates. Yes, you will be doing reshoots, and that's just all a part of running a business and keeping it growing. So that's our bottom line must. All right. And then our third part, how are you engaging with your guests right upon booking? What are you delivering to them right upon booking? Right. And then all the way through checkout and all the way through follow up. How are you remaining connected with them? These are the details and the moments that are building in unforgettable moments. And so what we say is our strongest memories are built by those engaging multisensory experiences. Now, this is actually scientific. Our strongest memories are built by multisensory experiences because it's a whole body experience. That's why you have a lot of memories probably based on food, what it tasted like, what it felt like, who were you with, what were the smells, how did you connect with that person across the table. So this is scientific, and we bring it into every bit of hospitality that we're working with. So you want to be designing a guest experience through amenities that invite them to be co-creators of your brand offering. So there might be details in your home that your guests actually really get to interact with. It could be add-on features and services like having a charcuterie board delivered to their door, getting a masseuse, an in-home masseuse coming to provide a spa service. Those are amenities, but also there are other smaller amenities but significant amenities like board games, right? Your board games still have a personality to them as well, right? That's all part of building your brand. But what are those board games that are going to be so memorable, so fun and unique, maybe something that they wouldn't have gotten elsewhere? So how do you generate those 5-star hospitality ratings? You've got to be thinking, is it novel? Is it high touch? Meaning, is there detail to that? And then do you offer creative courtesies? What are things that your guest is not going to be expecting? And I can share a little bit about that with even one offering the Olive Jar has. It's called the Signature Superhost Kit. It offers your guests 6 originally designed travel courtesies that will wow. Imagine these as small sort of mini experiences that are offered as DIY customizable templates for you to update with your own brand look and your local experience. All the details that will make it yours. The purpose of your hospitality and your amenities, specifically to the Olive Jar, we believe that those amenities should actually be serving and should be solving pain points of yours. Does it build your brand? Is it going to wow your guests? Is it going to generate organic buzz? And will it help you achieve top tier status? Right. So those are the things those are the markers that we're thinking about when we think about amenities. Now, here are a couple examples of that kit. Remember, I said it's made of 6 components. Here are a couple. One is a vacation vision board. So imagine this displayed up on your wall, hung on your wall. It's essentially an inspiration point for your guests. It's everything from local recommendations to all the way to inviting them to enjoy a color palette scavenger hunt for them to engage with their outdoor experience in a different way. It's prompting your guests to actually notice more details and get the most out of their experience. That's a vacation vision board. And then there's the travel prep guide, and this is something that guests actually receive right at booking, or it can also be implemented into your guest guidebook. And it's a way to offer your guests 3 things that are practical and creative. Tip number 1, it's all about getting inspired. You can offer a music playlist they can scan in with their QR code. Tip number 2 is kind of giving a recommendation of how to splurge. If you have to do one thing on this trip that is going to make or break your trip, and it's going to be just so memorable for the reasons you are there, do this, right? And then tip number 3 is purely practical but also fun. It's offering them, a recipe for their first morning breakfast, and something that's simple, ingredients that are easy to find locally. And we say, hey, prepare for a toast. And here's a sweet and savory version of a breakfast toast. But all of this can be updated by you as host. You could, instead of prepare for a toast that's breakfast, it could actually be a mixed drink. If you are used to hosting, going back to my example earlier, if you're used to hosting bachelorettes, maybe it is a drink recipe that you're offering, a set of mocktails or something like that. So it's a way to just get your guests excited and prepared for their trip with fun and meaningful points of connection. So that's a little bit about the Signature Superhost Kit. You want to make every guest feel like they're the very first guest there. So when it comes to your operations and sustainability, none of your small touches and details, even down to like how your throw blanket is placed on the bed, all of those things could completely fall flat if you don't have the right team in place for actually presenting those details in the way that you have envisioned, the way your designer has envisioned, the way that you have invested in that vision. So, Betsy, did you want to touch on this yourself, or do you want me to just run through this real quick before we get into part three?
We'll talk about it in part three. So,
Okay,
just
I'll skip through.
know this is like a teaser of what's to come.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So I know it's a lot that I have thrown at you here about marketing, design, and hospitality. But just take a breath. We say here are three grounding principles. One, you can execute and install, your design and hospitality in phases. It doesn't have to be all at once. We say, um, just make sure that your budget's not going to be spread thin. So do your best with what you have, but don't launch into this business without a substantial amount of capital to really build out your home for a strong launch, right? Number two, your investment will prepare you for future pivots and business growth. If you ever need to sell, if you're going to be looking for more partners as you build your portfolio of properties, right? What are you going to be able to show that you have produced, that you've created? So just be thinking about this as an investment, not just for the present day and who's traveling and who's staying there today, but what is this? How is this going to prepare you for the future in growing? Your venture, number three, your venture has to be bigger than you. And that's why we mentioned and touched a little bit on the heart of this business. Remember, you're going to need to remember your why you got into this and who you got into it for. Who are you wanting to serve? And when you compare it down to that, when you can come back to that, it is a very grounding practice and a way to sort of recenter yourself in some of the hurdles and bumps in the road that you're going to hit along the way. So that's a little bit just to give you a moment to breathe here. If you choose to move forward with that intention and purpose, you will acquire the direction, the strategy, and the team you need to see a return on your investment you never imagined. I truly believe that. And this is really important to me, that you would take this step. And even if you already have a property, this isn't just for first time owners. Maybe you've been doing this for a while and it's time to really take your business to the next level. And it's time to take a more holistic approach and, really build out a career and a portfolio that so much more like embodies something that's going to be truly transformational and continue to elevate this industry itself. So that's a little bit about what we talk about at the Olive Jar and what we promote, and we urge you to follow along with us. Betsy, why don't you head into part three?
Yeah. So, part three is really all about building the sustainability of your business. Like you create it, you do a marketing strategy, you have an install, and it's beautiful, and it's gorgeous, and it's everything you ever dreamed of. And then you host guests. The guests are both up, I want you to have a positive view of guests. And so where this comes in is really making it sort of like your ease of your day to day, making it feel like you are not so bogged down by maintaining this beautiful property that now you have. So, we're going to be talking about operations, how you can have systems in place, how you can automate things, how you can really build a quality boots on the ground team to make your dream possible. So, I go back to this quote a time and time again. Dawn was talking about like make every guest feel like they're their first guest. So one thing that we have to do a lot more work in the vacation rentals is providing a better consistency of product. And consistency of product has many different facets. You have the guest experience, guest communication, the interiors, the houses, the quality of services we deliver, the quality of bed linen, anything that has to do with the stay has to have a better consistency so that the guest experience has similar experiences all the time. So
Mhm.
you have your beautiful Airbnb listing, you have your beautiful Verbo listing. Is the guest showing up to the property and that's what they're experiencing? So our
Mhm.
vision, Venturescape Homes, is to support hosts to deliver a product consistency while running a profitable and scalable business. We want you to be able to feel like what you put on the market day one can be what the guest experiences a year, 2 years, 3 years later, and that it brings you joy in actually hosting, and that it's a
Mhm.
profitable and scalable business where you're not so bogged down in the day to day. The starting point is consistency. You want to have, like I said, the same experience from guest 1 to 100, from 100 to 1 million. You think of the companies that are doing this the best. You think of Disney. What do you experience from pulling into the parking lot? What do you experience and what is the buzz from downtown Disney to riding on the rides um to different flavors and scents in the park, or the way that even the staff interact with guests. I think of the best place that I lost my brother when he was 4 years old in Disneyland. And I think of the way that they treat even, that situation, and how they have a whole system and process in place to take care of lost kids. It was the best few hours of his life, by the way. So not to digress, but when we found him later on, he was like, I don't want to leave. I mean, so that Disney, if you're gonna let you lose your kids anywhere and lose them at Disney, um, but that's not a goal of mine. Side note, if you go to Trader Joe's, you have a consistent experience there. You know that you're gonna find like unique and sort of like um boutique products that are not sort of mainstream, like their bagel spices or their frozen products, their reheatable meals. And you also know that you're going to find great florals, and that people are going to be super friendly, and they may feed you while you're there. Um,
Mhm.
and so there's this expectation when you go to Trader Joe's, likewise with Costco,
Mhm.
they will also feed you, unless it's the pandemic, but let's not go there. And then,
I even think
what?
I was going to say, even at Trader Joe's, I find every time I ask, do you have XYZ? Do you have this thing? They don't just tell you, yeah, go to aisle whatever. They actually walk you there. At least in the Trader Joe's that I'm visiting, and there's a myriad of them here in Los Angeles. So, I get that same experience every time. They always walk me to the product that I'm asking for. So,
Or they always like comment on like things that I'm buying, and I'm
mhm.
like, oh, like, this is so good. Have you tried it
I
with this?
know. Yeah.
Like, oh, I really love this. This is my favorite go-to. Like, they always are like sort of commenting on what I'm purchasing,
Right.
which I think is really, part of their trading with their
Mhm.
HR, and having consistent sort of experience, because I know it's not just me. They don't seem just, oh, Betsy's walking into the store, or we're gonna like comment
Mm.
on her purchases. No, it's I shop at multiple stores. So, and then there's people like Ryan Pineda, who, if you follow him in the real estate space or entrepreneurship space, you know that if you ever interact with anything that he does on social media, or any of his platforms, his marketing team will be reaching out to you and following up with you, and reliable and consistent in making sure that you are empowered. So those are some, brands, and I'm bringing them up not to like endorse any of them, but just say we go to these things because we know that we can get something consistent.
Mhm.
We know they're reliable. They are a safe place for us to get what we need. And so,
Mhm.
or what we perceive that we need. And so
Mhm.
that's why we continue to go back time and time again. If it was I just joined an experience and I go there once and then I go there twice and then I go the third time and it's all a different experience, I wouldn't go back. But I go there
Mhm.
because it's consistent and I like it. It's predictable. There's something about life where you have a level of predictability where it's like, I can just
Right.
be, I can enjoy. It's a really pleasurable experience. So we want that to be the same thing with our the properties that we operate.
Same for, even if a guest is going to be sharing your property with someone else, you want their friend to have the same level and quality experience that their friend did who made the recommendation. And there's nothing like a bigger letdown when you're going somewhere that your friend recommended and it's not what they experienced as well, right? So there's a lot of weight going into that booking if it has come recommended. So that's another reason why consistency
Yeah.
is so important. Yeah.
Want to keep
All
friendships
right.
alive. So as
Right.
far as the operations like overview, we're looking at the foundation is consistency. And there's all these other pillars that go into it. We want to have our software. We have software so that we can automate as much as that can be automated, like all of the key code, the sort of standard check-in procedures, the payment process, all of that, we have software so that we can eliminate those recurring day to day. We have planning. So, planning would be things like being able to have a recurring maintenance, you know, rotation on your property. We plan for the gardening, we plan for the pool service, we plan for the furnace, the heater, all the systems of a property to be regularly maintained, as well as the seasonality of different recurring elements. Um, and then the third part is connection. So connection would be anything related to the guests that is unique to the guests that we can make a standout moment for the guests. So a point of connection, a point of them feeling seen and heard and special. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this a little bit more. But all of this is because we have our target traveler in mind. Property management software. So the whole goal of this is to not only um, ease the work that you're doing as a host or as a co-host, but also to build brand following. So a large part of the work that I do as a co-host is I am dialing in sort of the brand filters of my properties and things that really are unique about them and helping to build brand following by building up a database that we market to, and the property management software is the means to capture that along with other things. But the main hub for that, this sort of CRM, the database is the property management software. It's the way that we get the most eyes on our property by accumulating data from Vrbo, Booking.com, Google Vacation Rentals, all the online booking platforms, direct booking. And how we utilize that to best put our property on the market as well as to build a following. Um, if you have a small portfolio of maybe one property, you should really consider hiring a co-host because there's a lot of property management software out there. It is a hefty upfront cost. So if you can hire a property manager, I would encourage you to do that. Um, a co-host is a great option. Talk to your CPA first because there may be some sort of tax implications, but it's a great way to get your property out there and on the market with the most eyes right out the gate. There's other property management softwares. I'm not going to talk about those. I love Hostfully. It's what I use, and although there are capabilities with it that other softwares don't allow, but there's a large price point involved with that. And this is where really I feel like a lot of the magic happens with the guest consistency and the product consistency is you want to really set your turnover team for success. These are the guys and gals that are, they really are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for your team. They're the ones that are not only cleaning the place, but they are making sure that it's in working order for the next guest, and they are your ultimate quality control gurus. So they can only be that though if you set them up for success. So, what does it mean to set your turnover team up for success? Well, you want to have checklists. You want to have video and photo capture on the tail end. So not only do you want to have a set of tasks that you want them to do, but you need to have video and photo that they are getting from the property in order to, if anything were to go wrong, you have that documentation. They can only follow the checklist, so as well as the staging guides, or
Mm.
basically the guides that are the visuals, tell them to do so. So staging guides, what are staging guides? So I think it's pretty common for people to be like, okay, clean the toilet, make the bed, um, wipe down the cabinetry, wipe down the the surfaces. But staging guides are what it's actually supposed to look like once it's all done. So once it's all done, you could say, okay, make the bed, but there's a million different creative ways to make a bed. I asked my husband to make the bed, and then I go back in and I redo it. If I had a staging guide for my husband, he would know exactly how I want him to make the bed. I know that these pillows need to be fluffed, and the corners need to be going up, and that these pillows need to be arranged a certain way. There needs to be no creases on the duvet. I need to have perfectly like the corners on the blanket at the foot of the bed a certain way with the tassels out. Like all that is super,
The tassels.
super like
Sorry.
detailed.
The
And
tassels.
maybe I need to create a staging guide for my husband. Although that I don't know if that would be good for our marriage. Okay, I digress. But I feel like he's following my staging guide by like just like he's learned it. Now we're 10 years in. I think he knows my staging guide for the bed. But hey, you don't have your cleaners for 10 years yet, and they're not going to be
Mhm.
always the people that are always at your property. You might have a situation where someone gets sick, and this is where you want think about contingency plans. You love your cleaner. They know your property inside and out. You work with them on everything. They're doing a great job. They send you photos. Everything looks perfect. But there will be that moment when you will have to have a new person come in and
Mhm.
reset the property exactly as if they've always, in the same way as if a person was there
Mhm.
working for 10 plus years. So you're going to want to have that staging guide for quality control, and
Mhm.
for being super explicit. I usually do that in a digital way as well as a physical like binder, so that it can be something no matter what the tech level is, of a person that's at the property. They know exactly what's supposed to be in every drawer, exactly what every bed's supposed to look like, um, and the placement of all of the throw pillows. There's no room for error. You also want to keep
Mhm.
a 3-month inventory of all those consumables. So even things like matches, or um even considering things like cutlery, those are a consumable. So making
Mhm.
sure that you have a 3-month inventory, which means that you build up a sense of what your property is going to consume in 3 months, whether that be from toilet paper to to cleaning products or whatever it may be. But then also having a sense of like what is the turnover in like wine glasses, which are frequently broken, or cutlery, which can be thrown in the trash, making sure that you have sort of good benchmarks on those. So for every property that I co-host, I require that the host provides 3 sets of sheets, 3 sets of duvets per bed, 3 sets of towels per guest. So if you host 8 guests, that means you have to have 24 sets of towels. Yes, that means bath towels, hand towels, makeup towels, and washcloths. Then as far as kitchenware, you want to have 1.5 times the inventory of kitchenware, which means that if you are hosting 8 guests, you need to have 12 of everything, at least on site. 8 of those can be put out, but then there needs to be 4 extras put into storage, whether that be like forks, knives, spoons, wine glasses, do whatever. If you're offering like a special like bar setup, like martini glasses, or if you're offering like you have a beautiful barbecue, you're gonna want to have extra steak knives too. You want to make sure you have extra, extra, extra on top of extra, and you want to be really timely in the payments to your team. I use Turno; they're a great resource for that. Moving right along, because I know you guys have been patiently hanging with us. Staging guide, this is what it looks like on a printed or digital copy. You have every single cabinet accounted for. If there's any question of what's supposed to be where, I include notes. On the right hand side is our Turno checklist. You can the little photos on each check on checks or on each check that's when I require like photo documentation, so they actually have to submit a photo for that item, as well as check that they completed that item. This stuff will change. You should be up. A good staging guide is every quarter you're updating this based on what's happening with the season, if the pool's open, if there is if they're shoveling snow. Okay, well, I know at this point like there needs to be a the salt put out in a bucket, and there needs to be the shovel put out by the back door. Like, this stuff shouldn't be updated every 3 months, and it's something even the cleaner can help you maintain. And so no, yeah, absolutely no. There's no polished photos. It literally is just very utility focused.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Just didn't want to add, I know we were talking so much about the importance of professional photography, so I didn't want to mislead anyone to think, oh my gosh, for the
Absolutely.
staging guide too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
It's very like what goes where,
Yeah.
visuals. So,
Okay.
is there next slide?
Okay.
Yeah, so planning inspections inventory. You want to have every at least 3 months a minimum an inspection, and that is when you're getting started though in the first especially 6 months. This will need to happen every month. I say 1 to 3 months. It depends on sort of life cycle of your property and the age of you being a host. And with this inspection and inventory, you're going to want to do exterior and interior inspections. You want to open up every drawer and count every item, take pictures, and label everything. So you're going to want to make sure that basically everything is guest to guest, staying in the same spot. And things for your cleaning team staying in the same spot. You're going to want to take pictures because you're going to want to compare those to the pictures of that area in the prior inspection. And that just helps you as a host get to know where, or co-host get to know, like, what is the migration? Am I finding out that remotes are actually ending up in a different spot? And why is that? Could it just be that like actually it makes more user sense for them to have them in a particular spot, or it makes more user sense for the barbecue items to be in a particular area of the house that's closer to the barbecue. But once you feel like you have and I would say not even once from the beginning, you are gonna want to label everything. And if things are ending up in different places, then you can reevaluate. Are these labels actually like working for guests? Because it seems like things are ending up in different places. So are they
Yeah.
meaning like sort of like the ease of flow for the space? But having starting out with labeling everything in every drawer and every cabinet, even like from the bathroom to the dresser, to the kitchen. You should have at least 20 to 30 labels in your kitchen. Like, and not to scare you, but you want to know what's supposed to be on every shelf. For your team, for your turnover team. But what will make it easier for your turnover team is actually if that's labeled for guests, so they know that bowls go here. Because there may be a time where they use all the bowls and then they're going back to put them where they need to go. And they're like, I don't remember where I got them from. This isn't my home. So which, we know sort of intuitively in our own homes, but these guests are walking in and they don't remember where things go. They're just having a good time. So what can actually like be a very peaceful experience and is if they just have everything, if you just have everything labeled for your guests and they know where things are supposed to go back. You want to, in planning, just develop a brand voice in your communication. And that brand voice is not only like the words that you use around your property and around like the guest expectation. It also is sort of the pacing of communication and how frequent you communicate with them and about what. So you want to have for just a developing rapport with your guests, regular and consistent touch points. Some basics are before, during, and after their stay. You want to have clear and explicit directions. You want to be clear and explicit. So like, for example, directions to the home, how to use certain things, clear signage, QR codes, anything that can avoid a message back to you. If you can fill that with a video that you link to your guest guide, or for example, you have multiple doors at your property and sometimes they're going to the wrong door at check-in. Front load that, front load. And note that the check-in is the most important 10, I would say 30 seconds to 10 minutes of the whole experience. So plan for that. Plan for that. So before they arrive, you're going to want to have your booking confirmation. If you're doing a mid-term rental, you're going to have like a rental application or a lease in place. That is, if you're booking on Airbnb, if the guest is booking on Airbnb and it's a mid-term rental, yeah, they can book on Airbnb, they get that booking confirmation, and then as long as it's outlined in your house rules, you can also require a rental application, appropriate screening, and a lease on top of their Airbnb booking. It's really great when hosts do video thank yous and they invite to connect with the guests for trip planning. That is something really, if you have a strict booking policy, you get their cell phone information upon booking. And so if you have a booking window of like 48 hours where they can cancel for free, if you can send them a video in that time frame, you want to build excitement from a few days out. Like quick reminders for travel preparation. You want to make sure that they have the check-in instructions. Dawn in her Superhost Kit does have a way to build excitement with her welcome wishes that something can be sent out to all guests, and it just helps them like sort of get excited for a retreat stay and have some tangible action items for that excitement. Okay, well, next section is during your stay. So you want to have a welcome note and gift. You want to check in on their stay. You want to, as a benchmark for your team or whoever you're working with, even if it's a property manager, a timely response within 10 minutes. If something goes south, you want to make sure you have a means to show up at the property, whether it be someone on your behalf, like an Uber Eats, Instacart, a cleaner, or a neighbor, to make sure that you show your goodwill to your guests, especially if something goes wrong. And then after, you want to make sure you ask them to review, and you invite them to rebook at a discounted rate. You don't have to necessarily provide the discount, but it's always a great thing to build a loyal following. And then have a drip campaign and social media follow ask. So That's a great thing about working with property management software like Hostfully is you can gather emails where if you're solely booking on like or solely relying on Airbnb, you wouldn't be able to capture that guest contact info and house it all into one space. Planning, so like things like preventative maintenance, you want to have inspections, like I said. Um, if you can stay at the property yourself or a person on your behalf, that is always the best inspection. Because you will notice things like hair dryers that don't work or squeaky doors like that the hinges are just in the middle of the night just making a little bit too much noise. And then you want to plan for a regular deep cleaning, usually every 3 months depending on occupancy levels. And you also want to plan for things like you have beautiful throw pillows and blankets and everything. Ruggable rugs, those need to be washed regularly. Those need to be assessed, and maybe you need to swap out old worn throw pillows. Maybe they have a lot of piling. Maybe they need to be shaved. But those need to be things that are built into your preventative maintenance sort of routine. So you can use tools like Asana, ClickUp, Taskbird, Breezeway, all those, whatever you need to do, Google Calendar, reminders, but just make sure it's on a schedule. Batteries to even having a toolkit available for guests, and a long vendor list of people that you can turn to. And ultimately, none of that is really feasible without the secret sauce of developing and nurturing relationships with other people in the local community and other investors that are doing business in your same area.
Mm.
So on the guest connection side, Dawn is the rock star with this. But the basics for the operational side of things, like you should have in your pre-booking message, like, so what brings you to the area? Are you coming to celebrate something, a special occasion? So you want to know why they're coming. You want to, in your booking message, ask how you can help elevate their experience. You'd be surprised with what people share with you, that the pain point is that they just couldn't find a rental car, or they were not sure because Uber doesn't operate in Alaska, how they can get from the train station to your home. Like there's things that people will share with you. And yes, of course, you can front load that in your welcome guide, but maybe that's their pain point of in that first 48 hours that they can cancel, whether or not they're going to cancel or not. So if you know how you can help, it really helps lock in a solid sort of experience and make sure that they are actually going to stay and have a enjoyable experience. And you want to have personal touches for them and about you. The more they can get to know you through the property, not through like grandma photos on the wall, but through things that you share with them that are a taste of the local experience that you like. Like here, this is a setup from a property that I manage in Seward, Alaska, and they love Alagnac berries. They need a property offer of it, and they share Alagnac berry jam and like their favorite smoked salmon for a lot of guests. This is
Yeah.
a video that in the bottom right hand corner, we cater to families with young kids. And so we have a variety of hiking videos that we share with guests of hikes that we've done in Joshua Tree and recommendations for making it enjoyable with young ones. And just speaking to the things that they care about on a regular basis. When you know your target traveler, you can study them and research them and get to know them very well, and solve their pain points. And the more you solve their pain points, the better your reviews will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really a trust build. It's the trust building that is where the hospitality is really the trust building process. And the more that you can build trust with your guests up front, long before they even arrive, the less they are going to be bothered by small bumps in the road or large bumps in the road, power going out, hot water heater going out, things like that. They may be less prone to instantly attacking you, more prone to, having an adult conversation to solve the problem, because, knowing that you really do care for them. You've already built in that trust. So that's
Absolutely.
the other reason why these hospitality details matter so much.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
And the sort of to wrap up this section, the sort of the powerhouse behind our day-to-day operations is our vendors. So our cleaners, our handyman, all these people that at a text or a phone call will show up for you. This is one of the biggest pain points of a lot of hosts, and it's something that takes a lot of care and nurture. So some ways to care and nurture for your team and your vendors and to build, yeah, the sense of trust and rapport is to, of course, with the upfront vetting and all of that. But where some things that can be sort of like a secret sauce on the back end once you have your team is celebrating the birthdays, the special events, the things that they have going on in their lives. And you can do that by giving them a day off or by giving them a gift card or sending them, a special bonus or, if they, for example, one of my vendors has I said, well, I know their kids are in sports. So I said, oh, if you have any, is there any way that I can support your kids? Like, let me know. She sent me an email with sponsoring her kid for the swimathon, and so I did. Like those things,
Mm,
like just create like a sense of like you're a human being and I value you and I see you and I know that you have a life outside of my property and respect their boundaries too. If they tell you, ask them up front, like what will you do same day turns? Will you what's your preferred like booking window? Do you want someone to be able to book the property same the day of? And so then that means that maybe a not same day turn becomes into a same day turn. Like those things are things that you need to kind of work out with your team and just know that they're not a W-2 employee. They don't report to you. They're an independent contractor and they deserve their boundaries and also their days off. So it goes a long ways when you see your staff in that way and your vendors in that way. And
mhm.
wrapping up, I think we have one more slide. Two
Yeah.
slides. So we want to stay connected with you. This is just an intro to our philosophy of how we operate as and how we advise our clientele to approach midterm and short-term rentals. But this is just a starting point for you to connect with us and to have an understanding of the industry. You can reach out to me for a buyer's consult or set up a free buyer's consult or a free short-term and midterm operations consult. I have a variety of ways to connect with me, which will show up on the next slide. And I also do co-hosting where I do light property management for other hosts. So that's
Mhm,
a little bit about how you could connect with me on the next step. With Dawn,
mhm.
I'll let you share a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, so we do offer complimentary discovery calls. We do offer consulting as well. So, if you are exploring, getting a designer for the first time, maybe you did your first property. There were lots of bumps in the road, and you're ready to really level up and build out a team. Still, just contact us. We're happy to do a discovery call for you on the house. If you have a current property where you're feeling very stuck, you're not sure if you need to fold the business or if you need to make some changes, but it's all very overwhelming. You can't do a complete refresh at the moment, but what are some baby steps or sort of like a roadmap that could help you along the way? We actually do listing audits, so we can walk through those with you and then actually return sort of a blueprint or like a roadmap for implementing some of those changes in a phased approach. So reach out to us for either of those things. And then, of course, we offer our full service, marketing, design, and hospitality offerings as well.
We invite you to follow us on Instagram. If you want to be a part of our mailing list, we both have mailing lists. Or if you have any burning questions, send us a DM on Instagram. But we are both sort of more inclined to email, we are a resource, and your success
Yeah.
is our success as our as a business. So, anything
Good.
closing thoughts you want to sort of share,
I
Dawn?
think I think you said it all. I think that's great. I agree. I'm aligned.
Okay. Thank you for staying and hanging with us for this last like 2 hours. We hope you found lots of details and nuggets throughout, and that you see it as a cohesive three-prong sort of pillar of not only the acquisition but design, hospitality, marketing, and then also to the operations side to have a growing and thriving business. That's all for now.
Awesome.
Reach out to us.
All right. Thanks.